The Hidden Treasure, a discovery story. The rain had just stopped, and the sky was now a clear blue, casting a cool shadow over the dense tropical forest. Dr. Min Ha, a renowned archaeologist, stood in the middle of the forest, holding an ancient map she had recently uncovered during an excavation. The inscriptions on this map led her to a place that had been avoided for centuries, a region in the forest locals referred to as the Forbidden Land. With determination and a passion for discovery, Min Ha decided to follow the trail. Equipped with archaeological tools and accompanied by her team, she set out on a journey to uncover the legendary treasure that, according to local legends, had been hidden since ancient times, belonging to a civilization that had mysteriously vanished. On the third day of the expedition, Min Ha's team stumbled upon a strange stone wall, adorned with carvings of images they had never seen before. The engravings depicted ancient gods exchanging precious artifacts, and among the images, one stood out, a golden chest radiating light as if it contained some mystical power. As Min Ha stepped closer, she noticed an intricately carved stone key near the wall, beside the carving of the chest. Gently, she reached into her bag and retrieved the stone key she had found in an ancient temple earlier. To her astonishment, the key fit perfectly into a small crevice on the wall. With a soft click, the stone wall slowly shifted, revealing a narrow corridor leading deep underground. Min Ha and her team could hardly contain their excitement. Every step they took felt like they were on the brink of an unimaginable discovery. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, faint light emanating from glowing stones embedded in the walls. Before them was a massive stone table upon which lay vases, golden boxes with exquisite patterns and priceless artifacts, things that no one had ever seen before. But in the center of the room, a golden chest drew all their attention. Min Ha stepped forward and opened the chest. Inside was a pile of shimmering gold, alongside sparkling gemstones. But it wasn't just gold. Inside the chest was an ancient book, its cover made of animal hide, etched with ancient symbols that she had only seen in her research. This book was not just a material treasure, it was a treasure of knowledge. It contained secrets of a lost civilization, with technologies and wisdom that humankind had lost long ago. Min Ha realized that the treasure she had uncovered was not only a valuable asset, but also a key to unlocking the doors of history and science that humans had never before imagined. With the treasure in her hands, Min Ha understood that her research was just beginning. And in her heart, a deep belief arose. The story of this ancient civilization would completely change humanity's understanding of the past. As Min Ha carefully examined the ancient book, she felt a sense of awe that overwhelmed her. The pages, though fragile with age, seemed to hum with an energy all their own. The symbols on the cover were unlike anything she had seen in her studies. This wasn't just an ordinary text. This was a guide, a record, perhaps even a map leading to further treasures hidden away in time. "Dr. Ha, look at this," one of her team members, a young archaeologist named Tuan, called out from the far side of the room. He was standing next to a large stone pedestal, his eyes wide with disbelief. Min Ha walked over to him, her heart racing with anticipation. The pedestal, like everything else in the room, was covered in intricate carvings, but what caught her attention was the object resting atop it, a crystal, glowing faintly with a mysterious light. "This must be one of the artifacts mentioned in the book," Min Ha murmured, her voice filled with wonder. She gently touched the crystal, feeling a faint warmth emanating from it. At that moment, the entire room seemed to shift, as if responding to the touch. The walls, once still, began to hum with an almost imperceptible vibration. Suddenly, a series of hidden doors opened, revealing an even deeper chamber. The air grew thicker, charged with an energy that made the hairs on the back of Min Ha's neck stand on end. She knew that this was no ordinary discovery. The treasure they had found was more than just gold or jewels. It was a gateway to something far greater. "We need to move carefully," Min Ha warned her team, her voice serious. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." With caution, the team moved into the newly revealed chamber. The walls were lined with more glowing crystals, and in the center of the room, an ancient altar stood. On the altar was another chest, larger and more ornate than the first. Its surface was covered in gold filigree, and it shimmered with a strange, otherworldly glow. Minha's pulse quickened. She was certain that this was the true prize, the final piece of the puzzle. As she approached the chest, she noticed that the same symbols from the book were etched into the surface, matching the ones on the stone markers outside. "This is it," Minha whispered, "the culmination of everything we've worked for." Tuan stepped forward, reaching for the chest's handle. As he touched it, the chest seemed to react, the carvings on its surface glowing brightly. The air thickened with an almost tangible tension. They all held their breath as the lid of the chest creaked open, revealing what lay inside. To their astonishment, the chest contained not gold or jewels, but a set of delicate, intricately carved stone tablets. These tablets, made of a rare material Minha had never seen, seemed to radiate knowledge. Each one was inscribed with the same ancient symbols, but this time they appeared to form a complete language, one that could unlock the full history of the lost civilization. Minha's heart raced as she realized the significance of what they had found. This was more than a treasure of wealth. It was a treasure of understanding. These tablets held the key to an entire culture's history, technology, and possibly even their downfall. As the team began to carefully document and photograph the tablets, Minha's thoughts raced. She had uncovered something that could change the course of history. The lost civilization they had been searching for was no myth. It had existed, and now its story could finally be told. But even as she marveled at the discovery, a troubling thought lingered at the back of her mind. The symbols, the energy of the room, the strange crystals, everything about this place spoke of a civilization that had understood forces beyond what modern science could explain. What if these people had discovered something they weren't meant to? What if the treasure they had uncovered was not just a gift, but a warning? Minha shook off the thought. There would be time to investigate these questions later. For now, she had a discovery to share with the world, one that would rewrite history. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger. The hidden treasure had not only revealed ancient riches, it had awakened something in the past that was perhaps better left undisturbed. And the story of the lost civilization was far from over. "This is it," Minha whispered, "the culmination of everything we've worked for." Tuan stepped forward, reaching for the chest's handle. As he touched it, the chest seemed to react, the carvings on its surface glowing brightly. The air thickened with an almost tangible tension. They all held their breath as the lid of the chest creaked open, revealing what lay inside. To their astonishment, the chest contained not gold or jewels, but a set of delicate, intricately carved stone tablets. These tablets, made of a rare material Minha had never seen, seemed to radiate knowledge. Each one was inscribed with the same ancient symbols, but this time they appeared to form a complete language, one that could unlock the full history of the lost civilization. Minha's heart raced as she realized the significance of what they had found. This was more than a treasure of wealth, it was a treasure of understanding. These tablets held the key to an entire culture's history, technology, and possibly even their downfall. As the team began to carefully document and photograph the tablets, Minha's thoughts raced. She had uncovered something that could change the course of history. The lost civilization they had been searching for was no myth. It had existed, and now its story could finally be told. But even as she marveled at the discovery, a troubling thought lingered at the back of her mind. The symbols, the energy of the room, the strange crystals, everything about this place spoke of a civilization that had understood forces beyond what modern science could explain. What if these people had discovered something they weren't meant to? What if the treasure they had uncovered was not just a gift, but a warning? Minha shook off the thought. There would be time to investigate these questions later. For now, she had a discovery to share with the world, one that would rewrite history. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger. The hidden treasure had not only revealed ancient riches, it had awakened something in the past that was perhaps better left undisturbed. And the story of the lost civilization was far from over. As Minha and her team carefully documented the stone tablets, the weight of their discovery began to settle in. The cryptic symbols on the tablet seemed to tell a story of unparalleled significance, a history of a civilization that had once flourished, with knowledge so advanced it was almost otherworldly. The texts spoke of forgotten sciences, strange rituals, and most intriguingly, a catastrophic event that led to their downfall. The more Minha translated, the more the chilling reality began to unfold. The civilization had been deeply connected to the Earth's natural forces, and their understanding of energy, both spiritual and physical, surpassed anything modern science had uncovered. But their knowledge came with a price. The tablets described a cataclysmic event, an experiment gone wrong, a great rift in the very fabric of nature. The civilization, in their pursuit of power, had unlocked forces they could not control. What they had discovered, or perhaps created, was something that had the potential to reshape reality itself. And it was this very knowledge that caused their destruction. Minha paused, her mind racing. The discovery of the tablets wasn't just an archaeological breakthrough, it was a warning. This civilization had uncovered something so dangerous that they had sealed it away, hidden it from time itself, in hopes that no one would ever find it again. "Dr. Ha, look at this!" Tuan called out, his voice laced with excitement and concern. He pointed to a final tablet that was unlike the others. Its surface was not carved, but rather covered with strange moving patterns. As Minha approached, she felt a strange pull, a magnetic attraction, as if the tablet was calling to her. Carefully, she extended her hand and touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her, unlike anything she had ever felt. Her vision blurred, and for a moment it felt as though the very fabric of time and space had bent around her. Images flashed in her mind, visions of the ancient civilization, of their final moments, and of a powerful force, an energy source, locked deep within the earth, waiting to be released. "Minha!" Tuan shouted, grabbing her arm. She snapped back to reality, gasping for breath, her heart pounding in her chest. What just happened?" she murmured, her mind reeling. Tuan's face was pale with fear. "That tablet. I think it did something to you." Minha nodded slowly, still trying to process the vision she had just experienced. She had glimpsed the power that the ancient civilization had once harnessed, and the catastrophic consequences it had unleashed. The civilization hadn't just disappeared. They had vanished because they had played with forces they couldn't understand. As she collected herself, Minha realized that the chamber they were in might not just be a tomb for forgotten knowledge. It could be a prison, a seal designed to keep that power from ever escaping. The energy she had felt was unlike anything they had encountered before. The artifacts, the crystals, the tablets, all of it was connected to that ancient, dangerous force. "We need to leave. Now," Minha said urgently, her voice firm. "This place, it's not just a treasure trove, it's a warning." The team hurried to gather their things, but as they turned to leave, they noticed something disturbing. The stone doors, which had been wide open before, were now closing slowly, as if being drawn shut by an unseen force. The energy in the room seemed to shift, becoming heavier, more oppressive. "Move!" Minha shouted, and the team bolted for the exit. As they ran down the narrow corridor, the walls began to tremble, the ground beneath them vibrating. The entire structure seemed to be coming alive, reacting to their presence. When they finally emerged into the open air, gasping for breath, the forest seemed unnaturally still. The air was thick with tension, and the world around them felt different, darker, more foreboding. The treasure they had uncovered was not just history. It was alive, pulsing with a dangerous energy that could not be ignored. Minha took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the dense forest around them. The discovery was far from over. They had only just begun to scratch the surface of what lay hidden beneath the earth. But now, more than ever, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She had to protect this knowledge, to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. And as they made their way back to camp, Minha couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something far greater than they had anticipated. Force that, if left unchecked, could change the course of history once again. The ancient civilization had vanished because they had uncovered the ultimate power, and now they had left the clues behind, waiting for someone to find them. Minha knew one thing for sure. The story of this treasure and the forces it contained was far from finished. That night, back at the temporary jungle camp, the air was thick with silence. Even the usual symphony of nocturnal life seemed muted, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. Minha sat alone near the campfire, the ancient book open in her lap, its brittle pages glowing faintly in the firelight. She traced one of the symbols with her finger, its meaning still swimming in the depths of her mind. What she had seen, those visions, were not hallucinations. They were memories, or echoes, somehow imprinted on the tablet and passed to her through the strange energy it carried. Tuan approached quietly, sitting beside her. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you?" She nodded, not taking her eyes off the book. "There's more," she whispered. "I don't think that chamber was the only one." Tuan looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" Minha turned to a page she hadn't dared read until now. The symbols on it were clearer, more structured, a map of sorts, interlaced with coordinates written in the ancient script. This civilization, they built multiple vaults. That chamber wasn't a final resting place, it was a warning beacon. The others might still be out there, scattered across the world. Tuan leaned closer. "Are you saying they stored this energy in more than one place?" She nodded again. "Exactly, and if someone finds one of the other vaults before we understand what we're dealing with." She didn't need to finish the sentence. The consequences were already evident. The next morning, Minha called a meeting with the rest of the team. She explained everything, the vision, the map, the warnings. There was no hiding the truth now. They weren't just archaeologists anymore. They were the keepers of a fragile balance between the past and the present. "We have two options," Minha said firmly. "We can try to forget what we saw and hope no one finds the other vaults, or we can stay one step ahead." Tuan looked at her. "You want to track them down?" "Yes," Minha said, "to study them, to protect them, before someone else tries to use them." The team exchanged uncertain glances. They had signed up to uncover the past, not to guard it from the future. But one by one, they nodded. They trusted Minha, and they understood the gravity of what they'd found. Over the following weeks, Minha began decoding the coordinates. The tablets hinted at locations buried in vast deserts, beneath ocean trenches, and even hidden deep within the ice of the polar regions. Each site was described in poetic, metaphorical terms: the eye that watches the dunes, the heart beneath the frozen sky, the temple of salt and silence. But one location stood out among the rest: the Vault of Echoes, described as the first of the ancient storage sites, older than the chamber they had discovered, the origin of the knowledge. Minha circled it on the map. "That's where we go next." And so began a new chapter in their journey, not just to uncover history, but to protect it. Minha understood now that this was no longer about gold or relics. It was about choices, about whether humanity would repeat the mistakes of the past or finally learn from them. The ancient civilization had left behind more than ruins. They had left a test, and Minha was determined not to fail. The Hidden Treasure, a Discovery Story Part 5. 2 months later, a bitter wind howled across the icy plains of southern Siberia. A white wilderness stretched endlessly in all directions, harsh, remote, and utterly untouched by civilization. Minha stood bundled in thick thermal gear, staring at the frozen cliffs ahead. According to the deciphered map, the Vault of Echoes was buried somewhere beneath this desolate tundra. Her breath formed pale clouds in the frigid air as her team worked behind her, setting up equipment near the rocky face of a glacial ridge. This place was as the ancient text described, where silence is deeper than sleep and echoes are swallowed by time. Tuan approached with a scanner in hand. "We're picking up something," he said, excitement creeping into his voice despite the cold. "About 20 meters beneath the surface. The ground's not ice, it's hollow." Minha's heart quickened. Start digging. It took nearly 3 days. On the 4th morning, as dawn's faint glow lit the ice, they broke through into darkness. The entrance revealed itself, a narrow shaft descending into the depths, lined with smooth, obsidian-like stone. Strange carvings ran down the walls, symbols that glowed faintly when touched, responding to body heat, or perhaps even presence itself. The team descended slowly, their headlamps barely piercing the thick air. As they reached the chamber below, a low hum filled the space. a frequency so low it was more felt than heard. Minha froze. They had arrived. The Vault of Echoes was not like the first chamber. It was vast, cathedral-like in structure, with high arched ceilings and immense crystalline columns that pulsed softly with blue light. In the centre stood a single platform, and upon it a perfectly spherical object floated in the air, spinning slowly. It looked metallic, but with a surface that shimmered like water and reflected images that weren't quite real, images of people and places Minha didn't recognize, like memories from lives she'd never lived. "It's a memory core," she whispered. "A record." Tuan looked around, uneasy. "Why is it still active?" As Minha stepped closer, the sphere flared with light, and her mind was pulled once more into the vision. This time, the experience was deeper. She didn't just see the fall of the ancient civilization, she felt it. Fear, pride, the desperate hope of scientists and priests trying to contain something that had already begun to unravel. And then something else. A voice. "If you hear this, you must choose. Preserve what we were, or become what we feared." The vision shattered, and Minha stumbled back, gasping. Tuan caught her, his face pale. "What did it say?" he asked. She looked at him, eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and dread. "This isn't just a vault, it's a failsafe." The memory core, if activated fully, had the power to transmit knowledge, technologies, energy manipulation, consciousness transfer, but at a cost. If mishandled, it would do what it had done before, destabilize nature itself. And worse, this was only one of 7. Minha stood in silence, the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders. She had thought her mission was to protect the vaults. Now she realized it was far more complicated. They had a decision to make, uncovering the truth or burying it forever. But somewhere in the echoes of the vault, that ancient voice still whispered, "Will you learn, or will you repeat?" To be continued. Snow began to fall outside the Vault of Echoes, gently covering the excavation site like a shroud, as if nature itself was trying to conceal what had been uncovered. Deep within the vault, Minha sat on the cold stone floor, staring at the memory core. The faint hum of ancient energy vibrated through the chamber like the heartbeat of something long buried, but not dead. Her team stood around her, uncertain and tense. "No one else can find this," she said at last, her voice calm but resolute. "Not until we understand it." Tuan frowned. "But what if someone already knows? What if they're looking for the other vaults too?" Minha looked up, the thought chilling her more than the icy wind outside. Then we're running out of time. Over the next several days, they worked to stabilize the Vault of Echoes. Using portable shielding equipment and resonance dampeners, they constructed a protective field around the memory core, enough to contain its signal and prevent it from broadcasting to the outside world. But even with those precautions, the core pulsed stronger each day, as though aware of their presence, as though waiting. Minha spent hours alone with the artifact, diving deeper into its echoes, trying to piece together the fragmented history of the lost civilization. She learned of their experiments in quantum resonance, their obsession with bending reality to preserve life, and their eventual creation of the core network, a system of memory cores like this one, placed in vaults around the world, meant to preserve their knowledge in the event of extinction. But they had failed. Their downfall came when one vault, the source, was corrupted. The core inside had overpowered its keepers and unleashed a surge of energy that fractured the Earth's energy balance. That vault was never shut down. It was still out there, still active, still dangerous. One night, as the wind howled outside the vault, Minha made a decision. "We need to find the source," she told the team. "If we don't, someone else will. And if it's still unstable..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. The coordinates she had gathered from the memory core led to a forgotten island chain in the South Pacific, places thought uninhabitable, erased from modern maps by storms and shifting tides. According to the core, the source lay beneath one of them, in a crater swallowed by time and ocean. The team packed their equipment, preparing for the next leg of their journey. But as they sealed the Vault of Echoes behind them, burying it once more beneath layers of snow and ice, a final surge pulsed from the core, sending out a ripple of energy too subtle for their instruments to fully detect. Thousands of miles away, In a sleek, glass-panelled control room lit with screens and arcane devices, a signal flared red. A man in a dark suit leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the incoming pulse. "She's found one," he murmured. "It's begun." He turned to a map lit by 7 glowing dots. Only one had been active. Now there were 2. Minha didn't know it yet, but she wasn't alone in her quest. Others had been searching, some for truth, others for power, and the race to find the source had just begun. What started as an archaeological expedition was now a global chase against time, secrets and ancient forces that had been asleep far too long. The past was no longer buried. It was waking up. A warm wind blew across the ocean as Minha's boat neared the island, an unmarked speck in the South Pacific, surrounded by treacherous reefs and constantly shifting weather patterns. On the satellite, it barely registered as land, but the coordinates from the Vault of Echoes had been clear. The source lay here. From a distance, the island looked like a jagged crown rising from the sea. Volcanic, uninhabited, and utterly silent. Birds circled overhead, but none landed. The trees bent slightly inland, as though pushed by an invisible force emanating from the island's core. "This place gives me the creeps," Tuan muttered as the boat anchored offshore. "It doesn't feel right." Minha agreed. From the moment they had entered the island's waters, her skin had prickled with a strange tension, like the air was charged, like something was watching. The team made their way inland, cutting through thick foliage and twisting vines. The vegetation was strangely uniform, almost too perfect, as if the ecosystem had been manipulated. And at the center of the island, hidden behind a ring of stone monoliths, they found it. A vast crater, overgrown but unmistakably unnatural. It was silent. Too silent. Minha approached the edge carefully, and then she saw it. The entrance. A circular stone platform, half buried, marked with the same shimmering symbols as the Vault of Echoes. But this one was different. The stone pulsed faintly, not blue like before, but red. Alive. "Get the scanners," Minha said, her voice low. As the team unpacked their equipment, Minha kneeled by the platform, running her fingers over the carvings. She expected cold stone. It was warm, almost breathing. Suddenly the ground trembled, just slightly. The red glow flared, and a sharp tone rang out from beneath the earth. The scanner Tuan was holding sparked, then went dark. "I think it knows we're here," he whispered. Then the platform began to descend, sinking slowly into the earth, revealing a spiral staircase lit by red glyphs that flared to life one by one. Minha didn't hesitate. "We go down, now." They descended in silence. The walls vibrated softly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Unlike the Vault of Echoes, this passage was active, awake. They were not the first to enter. Ancient carvings along the spiral walls depicted scenes not of peace and knowledge, but of war, experiments, and ultimately collapse. At the bottom, they found the chamber. Larger than the others, the walls were lined with black glass panels, some cracked, others blinking with ancient code. In the center stood the source, a core far larger than the others, floating above a metallic pedestal. It spun faster than the others had. The glow was intense. Its surface was not stable. It shifted like liquid metal, and within it, shadows moved. Minha approached slowly, but before she could speak, a voice echoed through the chamber, not one from memory, not an ancient recording. A live voice. "You made it." Lights flared. From behind the core, a figure stepped into view. A man, tall, wearing a sleek black suit. His eyes reflected the same red glow as the core. He smiled, calm and knowing. "We've been waiting for you, Dr. Minha." The team froze. Tuan stepped in front of Minha instinctively. "Who are you?" Minha asked, her voice steady. The man tilted his head. "A historian. Like you. But while you've been trying to protect the past, we've been preparing to restore it." He gestured to the source. "This is not a danger. It's a solution. A second chance for humanity. If we control it, we can rewrite everything. War, disease, even death." Minha's eyes narrowed. "And if it controls you?" The man's smile widened, almost sad. "It already does. It chooses who understands it. And it chose you too, didn't it?" The chamber suddenly felt smaller, the air tighter. Minha looked at the core, felt its pull once again, but this time she resisted. "I won't let you awaken it," she said. "You already have," he replied. And in that moment the source pulsed brighter than ever before, and the ground began to shake. Something ancient was stirring. Something neither of them fully understood. The tremors grew stronger. the red light from the source now pulsating in blinding waves, casting long, flickering shadows across the chamber walls. Minha could feel it, the same presence she'd sensed in the Vault of Echoes, now stronger, aware, and far less patient. "Everyone, fall back," she shouted, her voice barely rising above the rising hum. The team retreated behind a collapsed column of stone, but Minha remained eyes locked on the stranger. He stood calm, hands clasped behind his back, his silhouette outlined by the crimson core. "You don't understand," Minha said, stepping forward. "This power doesn't just rewrite the world, it consumes it. The last civilization begged the future not to make the same mistake." The man raised an eyebrow. "And yet here you are, standing at the threshold." "I came to stop it," she snapped, "to keep it sealed." He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You can't stop what's already begun. You saw the vision. The source is not just energy, it's memory. It carries consciousness, ours, theirs, everyone's, a collective intelligence." Minha's breath caught. That was the missing piece. The source wasn't a weapon, it was alive. And worse, it remembered. The floor beneath them cracked. From the base of the core, thin tendrils of light slithered out like roots, snaking along the ground toward the shattered glass panels. Wherever they touched, machines flickered to life, consoles powered by unknown technology, screens displaying strings of alien code. Behind Minha, Tuan shouted, "Dr. Ha! It's hacking our systems! It's trying to interface with us!" She turned toward the team. "Disconnect everything, now." But it was too late. The source had already established a link. Suddenly, Minha's mind was no longer her own. She was pulled into a realm beyond the physical, an ocean of memory, swirling with the voices of thousands of minds. She saw the ancient civilization as they once were, beautiful, brilliant, boundless in their ambition. They had created the source to become eternal, to preserve their wisdom by merging their thoughts into one shared consciousness. But it turned on them. Because knowledge without soul, without restraint, becomes hunger. Great voice echoed through her thoughts. Not spoken, but felt. "You open the gate. Now you must decide. Become part of the whole, or break the cycle." Minha stood at the edge of a void, the combined intelligence of an extinct world pressing down on her. It wanted her. It needed her, a new host, a fresh mind to continue its purpose. But she wasn't alone. From somewhere in the depths of her mind, a familiar voice called out. It was her mentor, Professor Kwang, long dead, whose journal had led her to this journey. His voice echoed softly. "The true treasure is not in what you find, but in what you protect." She clutched that thought like a lifeline and fought back. With a scream of defiance, Minha broke the connection. Her body collapsed to the stone floor of the chamber, gasping as the light from the source dimmed for a moment, flickering, unstable. She opened her eyes to see the man stumbling, gripping his head in pain. The source had touched him too, but it had rejected him. "You don't have what it needs," she said hoarsely. "It's not power it seeks. It's memory, truth, balance." He glared at her, eyes wide with disbelief. "You can't stop it. It will awaken the others. It will unite them." "Then I'll find them first," she said. Minha turned to her team. "We seal this place. No one else comes here. And then we go. There are 5 more vaults. And if they wake up like this one," Tuan nodded grimly, "then it's a race against something bigger than all of us." Minha looked one last time at the source. It was alive, yes, but not fully awake. Not yet. And as they left the chamber behind, the core pulsed once, slowly, like a heart waiting to beat again. The Hidden Treasure, a Discovery Story, Part 9. The journey back from the island was quiet. Too quiet. Minha stood alone on the deck of the ship as the dark silhouette of the Source's island faded into the mist behind them. She held the original memory core from the Vault of Echoes close to her chest, its soft blue glow now dim, as if afraid. Inside her mind, the echoes of the ancient voice still whispered. Not words, but emotions. A warning, a plea, a promise. Below deck, the team worked in silence, each member changed by what they had witnessed. Tuan sat reviewing the footage from the core chamber, but half the data was unreadable. Scrambled, corrupted, as if the source itself had tampered with it. "It's like it didn't want us to remember," he muttered. Minha walked in, her expression calm but focused. "Or it only wants us to remember what it chooses." She unrolled the ancient map they had pieced together from all the recovered symbols. 6 vaults remained. The coordinates were vague, some only marked with riddles or celestial alignments. One was believed to be under the sands of the Sahara, another in the ruins beneath the Andes, one marked only as the one that floats, perhaps lost beneath the ocean. Minha tapped her finger on the symbol for Vault 3. The Vault of Winds. It's the closest. Tuan looked up. The Himalayas, she nodded. According to the texts, it was built at the highest peak where the stars meet the breath of the gods. If it's still intact, it may hold the knowledge of how to shut the others down, permanently. But what if it's like the source? He asked quietly. What if we wake something worse? Minha looked him in the eyes. Then we don't wake it. We listen, we learn, and we decide. No one else. That night, far across the ocean, in the control room of the shadowy organization monitoring the vaults, red warning lights blinked silently on a black screen. A technician stared wide-eyed. "Director, we have movement." A woman stepped forward, sharp-eyed, her hair streaked with silver. "Which one?" "The Vault of Winds," the technician replied. "Energy signatures just spiked. It's reacting to the source." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Send a team and track the archaeologist." "Dr. Minha?" "Yes. She's the variable now, and if she's planning to shut them down." She paused, her voice cold as ice. "Then she becomes a threat." Back on the ship, Minha stood on the deck once more, the wind tugging at her coat. She stared up at the stars, bright and scattered over the sea. Somewhere out there, the Vault of Winds waited. Another memory, another test. But she was no longer just an archaeologist. She was the keeper of a forgotten legacy and the guardian of humanity's future. The race had begun. To be continued. High above the earth, where the air thinned and the sky turned darker than blue, the Himalayas loomed like silent giants. Jagged peaks pierced the clouds, and wind howled through the canyons like voices of forgotten gods. Somewhere amid those towering spires of ice and stone lay the Vault of Winds, the third vault, and according to the map, the oldest. Minha stepped off the helicopter onto a remote ridge, wind tearing at her coat, her boots crunching into the snow. Behind her, Tuan and two Sherpas began unloading equipment. The trek ahead would be brutal, 6 days on foot through one of the harshest terrains on Earth. But Minha didn't hesitate. "This place is wrong," one of the Sherpas muttered in Nepali, his eyes wary. "The mountain hums. It is angry." She had heard the hum too, low, deep, and constant, like something buried far below was stirring in its sleep. On the fourth night, as a storm swirled above their camp, Minha sat huddled in the tent, studying the ancient texts by the flickering glow of her headlamp. One passage from the Vault of Echoes returned to her thoughts. "When the sky breathes and the winds still, the third shall open, but only to the voice that remembers the first." She ran her fingers over the passage, whispering the words aloud, and the air in the tent suddenly shifted, no longer cold but warm. Still. Outside, the storm had stopped. The mountain was silent. She stepped out into the snow, her breath catching as the clouds above split, revealing a shaft of moonlight falling directly onto the glacier wall beside their camp. The ice was melting fast, and beneath it a smooth, curved structure glinted. They had found it. The entrance was unlike the others, not a stone temple, but a giant circular disc embedded into the mountainside, covered in mirrored panels. As they drew closer, symbols etched across its surface began to glow, not red like the source, nor blue like the echoes, but white, pure and pulsing gently. Tuan held up a scanner. "It's not emitting energy, it's absorbing it." Minha reached out and placed her palm on the surface. The door opened. Inside, a long tunnel curved downward, lined with silver wind chimes that rang softly, though no breeze passed. The team moved slowly, reverently, as though walking into a sacred temple. And that's what it was. The central chamber opened like the inside of a massive conch shell, spiraling upward with flowing architecture unlike anything they had seen. In the center floated the core of Vault 3, smaller than the source, calmer, its light cool and steady. Minha approached it, and instead of being pulled in violently like before, a single, gentle voice echoed in her mind. "You are not the first to carry the burden, but you may be the last to understand." She closed her eyes and let it speak. The vision that came was different, peaceful, quiet. She saw the earliest elders of the civilization, philosophers, dreamers, builders. The Vault of Winds had not been made for power or preservation, but for reflection. It was built as a library of memory, free of corruption, unaltered by ambition. a place of truth. The vision faded. Minha opened her eyes, tears on her cheeks. "This one doesn't want to be used," she whispered. "It wants to warn us." Behind her, Tuan was staring at the core. "It's showing me, the others, the fourth vault, it's awake." Minha turned sharply. "Where?" Tuan's voice was barely audible. "The Amazon." Suddenly, the vault of winds shuddered. The chimes clashed together violently, as if alarmed. Lights across the chamber flickered, and then a distant voice, crackling through their radio. "This is Agent Mercer of the World Preservation Directive. Dr. Minha, you are trespassing on a restricted site. Cease all activity and prepare for immediate extraction." Minha's blood went cold. They had found her. She looked at the core one last time. "I understand now. The truth is scattered. Each vault is a piece of the story. If they reach the wrong one first," Tuan nodded, "then the whole world could be rewritten." Minha turned to her team. "Pack up. We're heading to the Amazon." And in the Vault of Winds the core pulsed once, sending a signal across the earth, quiet, invisible, but heard by every other vault still sleeping. The awakening had begun. The dense green canopy of the Amazon stretched endlessly beneath the helicopter, hiding secrets older than civilization itself. Minha stared out the window, her eyes distant. Below them, the fourth vault awaited, the heart of the forest, as the ancient texts called it, the last piece of the puzzle, the final warning. They had come so far. From the depths of forgotten temples to the frozen breath of the Himalayas, Minha and her team had uncovered fragments of a lost world, one that had risen to impossible heights before vanishing into myth. But now the truth was undeniable. The vaults weren't just relics. They were choices. Each one held knowledge, memory, and consequence. Each one asked a question. Would humanity repeat the past, or rise beyond it? As they descended into the rainforest, Minha's communicator crackled with static. The voice of Agent Mercer came through, distorted but clear enough. "Dr. Minha, this is your final warning. You're interfering with global stabilization protocols. Turn back." She switched off the radio. No more warnings, no more turning back. They reached the clearing. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the forest responded to the core beneath. Trees leaned inward. The air grew still, and then a massive stone lotus began to bloom from the earth, petals parting to reveal the glowing orb within, brilliant, golden, unlike any they had seen. Minha stepped forward. Her hand hovered over the final core. She turned to Tuan and the others, her voice calm. "This is it. Once I touch it, everything changes. Either we accept their mistakes, or we forge our own path." No one spoke. No one needed to. Minha closed her eyes and touched the light. There was no pain, no visions of destruction, only clarity. She saw all of it, the rise, the fall, the warnings, but deeper still she saw hope. The final message left by a dying people. "We are not your gods. We are your shadow. Learn from us. Be better than us." The light faded. Minha opened her eyes. The vaults had gone silent, not destroyed, not erased, simply resting, waiting for the right moment or the right hands. The race was over, not because it had been won, but because it had never been a race to begin with. It had been a test, and humanity still had time to choose. Years later, a quiet museum tucked in the heart of Hanoi displayed 7 sealed artifacts beneath glass. No power, no fanfare, just silent presence. A plaque read, "The Legacy of Echoes, a civilization lost, a warning found." Minha, older now, walked past schoolchildren gazing at the glowing symbols. She smiled not because of what was found, but because of what had been preserved. Not gold, not power, but the choice to listen and to remember. The end.